Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and I don't think we've ever seen a glow up like this in Go Battle League history. Last season, Grumpig was rank 1000 on PvPoke for the Great League. This season, it's rank 7. And what happened? It got a new fast move, Psywave, and it has access now to Dynamic Punch, which has been reworked to be a fighting type clone of the move Psystrike. Grumpig looks to be a strong meta contender from day one, and today I'm pairing it up with Rock Tomb Credilli and Morpeko. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and we're off to a very neutral start in the first match, leading Grumpig into Blastoise. I'm farming up a ton of energy, switching into Credilli, and catching as they make it to the Skull Bash, and it is the Skull Bash catch. Out comes a Shadow Jumpluff, and this is quite nice for Credilli. Credilli is going to be able to spam out Rock Tombs. Rock Tomb, if you saw the Spirit Tomb video, you know Rock Tomb is no joke now. Rock Tomb does quite a lot of damage, and it debuffs the opponent as well, meaning that I can survive the Energy Ball, get to another Rock Tomb, and very comfortably just pick up the KO on this Jumpluff. Opponent, unfortunately, they lost a ton of energy when that move was caught from Blastoise. I'm going to bank energy in case I need the Credilli for later and pivot back into Grumpig. One of my favorite things about Golurk in previous seasons was the fact that its charge attacks were Ghost and Fighting. And this is an unwallable coverage combination, similar to Annihilate. And that's what Grumpig has this season as well. Its energy is going to go absolutely everywhere. You literally cannot wall it. In the back is going to be a Shadow Drapion, and I have a 2-shield Morpeko, so this game is over. I'm going to bring in the Morpeko, and then throw 4, and then look to switch. Unfortunately, Morpeko gets the 1-turn bring-in, so I don't get the catch. The good news is it's not going to impact the game in any meaningful way. The game is already over. Now, I just get to throw 4 more Thunder Shocks, CMP tie the Aura Wheel onto their Aqua Tail. That is going to pick up the knockout. Blastoise, 1 away from the move, and we're just catching everything this Blastoise throws onto our Credilli. Back in comes Morpeko, and that's going to be all she wrote for the Blastoise. Blastoise gets knocked out by an Aura Wheel, and that's a good game. We've got the Battle of Pigs in the next match. I'm leading Grumpig, they're leading Grumpig, and I'm going to go for a Dynamic Punch bait. Bit of a risky bait here, but the bait pays off, because now I'm going to be a couple Psywaves ahead of my opponent since they went for Shadow Ball. My plan is to overfarm and play to the CMP tie here, so I go for it just for them to make a devastating catch onto Wigglytuff. Oh man, that catch hurts. I'm going to rebank some energy, so I'm able to get to a Dynamic Punch, and then I'm going to be sending in Credilli. Credilli is going to be taking super effective damage from Icy Wind, because Rock is an absolutely awful defensive typing. It does not resist Ice, even though it really feels like it should. I am going to go for a Rock Tomb. In hindsight, maybe I should have gone for the Grass Knot, but realistically, I would rather have it work out this way, where my opponent ends up KOing the Credilli, but I get a farm on Grumpig. Grumpig now exits with a charge attack loaded. If they send in the Grumpig, I'm going for the Shadow Ball. They tried for a Peekaboo, bringing in their own Credilli, switching to the Grumpig, but I clicked the right move. Back in comes Credilli. So someone else with a very similar team idea with the Grumpig Credilli core, and now I get to send in Morpeko. Morpeko can survive a Rock Tomb, but it's going to do a ton of damage, and it's also going to mean that Morpeko's attack is lowered. Morpeko, thankfully enough, has the tools to undo that attack debuff by going for the resisted Aura Wheel, and now Morpeko is going to look to make it to the Dark-type Aura Wheel, but again, Morpeko is going to be debuffed down to -1. Credilli actually does a very good job at handling Morpeko, just due to the fact that the first Aura Wheel is going to be electric, and it's continually able to undo Morpeko's attack boost, which is what allows it to run away with games. Thankfully, Morpeko is barely able to hang on, making it to one final Psychic Fangs and taking the win, but Credilli showing its value in that game. Grumpig versus Shadow Steelix. Dynamic Punch is going to be quite nice here. I'm going to look to farm up a ton of energy. They build up to the crunch. I'm not expecting them to have it though, but they actually have the crunch, and then they catch the Dynamic Punch on a Jellicent. I'm getting styled on here. Okay, I very much clearly need to lock in, because oh my goodness, I am getting absolutely cooked in this battle. This is not good at all. Grass Knot, massive damage onto the Jellicent, but I lost a lot of energy by the opponent catching Dynamic Punch on a Jellicent. That is brutal. I'm going to get a nice farm down with Credilli. Credilli exiting with a charge attack loaded, opponent sending in Steelix. This is a bit of a surprise. Steelix not going to do well here, but I guess Steelix can tank any one move, so that's the thought process from the opponent. Psychic Fang's not going to be enough to knock out, so I'm fine letting this go, banking the move and just sending in more Pekko. So that way, if I need to debuff something later on, I can. And they're staying in, so I may as well buff up my attack with Ore Wheel. They're getting KO'd. In the back, oh no, it's a Shadow Sableye. Shadow Sableye, I really like Shadow Sableye, but unfortunately, it's not going to appreciate Morpeko. Morpeko just lightning fast pacing and having that Shadow Claw resist. Sableye's pacing is a lot better this season now as well. I'm very excited to try it, but in this particular instance, my opponent needs to commit to the farm down, and they're almost able to do so. But Morpeko makes one final Ore Wheel, taking the win, and the 2-shield flex. Nightmare lead leading into a Low Kicks. Low Kicks is a Pokemon that I think is actually going to be a really strong anti-meta pick in this meta. X-Scissor is going to be shielded, and now I am going to fire off a Rock Tomb as the opponent switches to make a catch into Lapras. Lapras, they can go for a Sparkling Aria, but Sparkling Aria, especially at -1, is not going to threaten a KO. This is neutral damage. So I'm more than happy just to farm up a ton, and this way I can make a Rock Tomb against the Low Kicks if they decide to let it go. I undercharge, but I do not know Rock Tomb strength. Rock Tomb just KOs there. I should still be able to make a move versus the Low Kicks. Low Kicks re-hits the field of play, and now I get to get my shield back with the Rock Tomb. They no-shield and it almost one-shots. That's why I was so surprised that they ended up no-shielding there. I was fully expecting them to shield. Rock Tomb is a hard-hitting move now. And now they're left with a 2-shield Talonflame, and they're left shielding Psychic Fangs from Morpeko. Morpeko, I think if I shield, I'm just getting incinerated down, and then there's a Brave Bird in my Grumpig's future. So I'm just going to let it go, send in Grumpig, and I have to make a 50-50 call. I think they're going to fly, so I call it. The fly does not knock out. I get the Psywave down. Same type attack bonus Psywave, putting in a tremendous amount of work in that game. We lead into Jellicent. Not a great lead. I'm going to save switch into Credilli, and my opponent decides to stay in this matchup. They're going to fire off a Shadow Ball that does quite a lot of damage, and now they're going to send in Marowak. It looks like they did get the one-turn bring in there, so they didn't actually get the sneak they were supposed to. So I'm actually going to over-farm and play to the CMP tie, because realistically, they should have got the move when I got the move, so I do want to try and play it fair if at all possible. Now I get to send back in the Grumpig. Grumpig, very okay tanking a Bone Club, and Grumpig will look to farm up before picking up the knockout with Dynamic Punch. I'm going to fire off the Dynamic Punch at the Marowak. Marowak hangs on 1 HP, but one Psywave is going to pick up the knockout. In comes Morpeko in the back. A Swampert, and this game should be over. This is a Shadow Swampert. So even if they no-shield the Ore Wheel, which they end up shielding the first, which is basically just respecting a Seed Bomb, even if they no-shield that, up a shield, Morpeko should still be able to sweep the end game. But with them shielding the first, now it's definitely over. These Mud Shots add up quite a bit, but Morpeko is now completely off to the races. I really like the Morpeko Grumpig core. Grumpig, very good at beating the stuff that Morpeko doesn't want to see, and its energy just goes everywhere. And the moment that Grumpig energy forces a shield advantage, Morpeko is off to the races and able to sweep endgames. Grumpig versus Ariados. This is a good matchup for Grumpig. Grumpig can take a super effective lunge. That's not going to be a problem whatsoever. So Grumpig more than happy to tank the lunge, look to farm up. Opponent save switches into a Feraligatr, and here I make a pretty big misplay. I think what I should have done is I should have actually thrown the Shadow Ball, and then once the Shadow Ball landed, then I could have just sent in Morpeko to farm down. But instead, I bring in Credilli, I'm down energy, Feraligatr lands the Ice Beam, and now things are looking quite uncomfortable. I'm going to send in Morpeko. Morpeko immediately met with the Hydro Cannon, and from here, I can throw 5 Thunder Shocks and then throw the move. And here, I make a game-losing misplay. What I should have done was gone for the Electric Ore Wheel. It's massive overkill, but then I would have been boosted into the next matchup. Whereas now, I am not boosted. And that's actually going to cost me the game, as the final Pokemon is revealed to be Diggersby. So had I brought the Morpeko into the Feraligatr after chipping with the Grumpig, I would have had my Credilli on this, which would have been a very good position. But instead, misplace, abound, I lose the entire Credilli. I'm not boosted on the Morpeko, or at least I wasn't until I threw the Dark Aura Wheel. And now, I do still have a way back into this game, but it's going to involve a combo play. I'm going to be able to grab the final shield here. My opponent has a move. I have a move on the Grumpig. So I'm going to look to switch, but they switch out as well. I'm making it to the Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball can KO. I go for a slight undercharge, but it knocks out. And I don't get to the Dynamic Punch. I think that was a very winnable game if I execute slightly better. But alas, I did not. So unfortunately, I am going to take the loss. Tough lead for Grumpig. It's not the worst matchup in the world. What is the worst matchup in the world is when you try and switch out and the game freezes for a little bit. It looks like I did actually lose some turns there because they are able to make a crunch earlier than they should have. They're going to make a switch and a catch onto Furret, but applying an early debuff onto Furret is very nice because Furret is forced to go for Trailblaze here. Trailblaze does not get same type attack bonus, and it's now debuffed. So that Trailblaze does nothing to Credilli. Credilli can now fire off Grass Knot. Grass Knot is going to be getting them low. I can't quite flip switch, but I'm able to get that Furret very low. And now I can send in Grumpig. Back in comes Drapion. And Drapion makes it to the crunch, but Grumpig does have some pretty solid bulk, so it will be able to hang on. So crunch is going to connect. I get to fire off Dynamic Punch, and I'm going to win or lose by Morpeko. In comes Morpeko. Opponent is going to go for the Aqua Tail. I'm going to keep Morpeko as healthy as I possibly can. But now I have an energy advantage. It's Lapras in the back, and this game is over. Morpeko, with the energy advantage that I generated, is just completely winning here. This poor Lapras. Psywave, an amazing fast move. We've seen it on Grumpig, but Psywave really struggles into the dark types. And that's one thing that I did enjoy about this team is every single member of this team does well into Lapras. So with people trying Lapras, because it's obviously a very strong pick, with this team, you basically always feel like you're at an advantage anytime the opponent brings a Lapras onto the field. Aura Wheel is now heavily boosted. We KO the Lapras, farm down the Drapion, and take the win. Tough lead in the next match, leading Grumpig into Guzzlord. Here, I'm going to try and throw 11 Psywaves and switch. Unfortunately, I accidentally did 12. Why that matters is when my opponent throws, I actually don't get a sneak here, whereas if I did 11 and switch, then I would get a sneak. And that means that they're going to get to land a move, unfortunately, on the CMP tie here, so they get to land back-to-back Brutal Swings before I can apply the Rock Tomb debuff. So Rock Tomb is going to do some pretty nice damage. Opponent can CMP tie me here again, but they decide to actually take the energy instead. I go for the Rock Tomb, they're going to shield, in comes Grumpig, and I get to go for Dynamic Punch. And now, unless they're willing to double shield, they're losing a bunch of energy. So they are going to get KO'd, it's Jellicent, I send in Morpeko, it's Claydol in the back, and unfortunately, losing Switch was the game here. My opponent was so weak to Credilli. Oh my goodness. Credilli would have been an absolute nightmare for their backline to deal with, but they just stayed in with the Guzzlord. They won swap, and 2-shield Morpeko can do a lot, but it's not doing anything against the Mud Slapper. So I bring in the Grumpig, and at this point, I know the game's over. So I am just going to let the Rock Tomb through, and then from there, I do end up resigning the match. Grumpig versus Goodra in the final game. Pretty solid matchup for the Grumpig. Grumpig can pretty comfortably take any one move from the Goodra and look to spam out charge attacks. So I'm going to overfarm with the Grumpig. Oh my goodness, going for the Dynamic Punch, and they make a devastating catch onto their own Grumpig. My goodness, the level of competition I faced today, people were making some sick catches. Oh my. Shadow Ball going to be shielded, and now I can send in Morpeko. Again, this synergy is really nice. Get the shield advantage with the Grumpig, in comes Morpeko, because Morpeko loves a shield advantage. It can normally outpace things, give the shield back, and then now be boosted and have an energy advantage. In comes Goodra. I'm feeling greedy, and I'm going for the Psychic Fangs. A +1 Psychic Fangs, I think Goodra could hang on here, but they respect the Dark Aura Wheel, and that's really good news for Morpeko. Morpeko shielding up the Aqua Tail. At this point, the fact that they're shielding, definitely a sign that whatever they have is not going to be a fan of the Morpeko. Psychic Fangs is going to pick up the KO. In the back, I see Mono Water, and it's Blastoise. This is a +1 dark type aura wheel. Blastoise is very, very bulky. Blastoise hangs on, but not by much. Morpeko gets the farm down, and that is a good game. All in all, I did have a ton of fun with this team. I think that Grumpig, it's just really, really good. And this team as a whole, considering the amount of people who are trying Lapras right now, running a team like this, even if you end up switching out one of the 3 team members, running a team that's triple strong into Lapras will put you in a really good position in a lot of games because so many people are running Lapras. So time and time again, people would run Lapras into this team and just have absolutely nowhere to go. I do think that Grumpig is just going to be a meta contender. Being a mono psychic is a bit weird, but its coverage is incredible, and with Psywave, it has pretty nice fast move damage as well. So if you're able to get energy, Grumpig ends up feeling like an extremely flexible pick. So I really liked using Grumpig. I had my doubts going into the season, to be honest, but it felt pretty good to use. Morpeko, I think, is going to be an underrated star of this meta. I know Morpeko, very common in the Go Battle League. It still has not won a Pokemon Go competitive tournament. I think this is the meta. These 3 months, Morpeko has to take home at least 2 to 3 regional championships. So much of this meta is devastatingly weak to Morpeko. I think that if Morpeko can't win a tournament in this meta, it can't win a tournament ever. Because my goodness, Morpeko, the synergy that it has with Grumpig is really good, but even outside of Grumpig, Morpeko can just put in a tremendous amount of work. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy watching content like this, please do consider leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.